Wrestling fans, I'm Dan Marty.
Brutus Beefcake.
Unbelievable fans, after WWE Clash of Champions has come to an end, it's time for a brand new Wrestling Insiders strutting and cutting. Stand by.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans, very happy to have you on another pay-per-view Sunday. I'm very proud to have with us not only a WWE Hall of Famer, but an acclaimed best-selling author right now, Brutus Beefcake strutting and cutting. Fans not only around the country, but around the world are loving this book.
The book is phenomenal. It's funny. It's the complete truth. But we knew where to rein it in so we didn't get anybody in trouble. And it's a great, happy book. It's not, I'm not in there making fun of anybody. I'm not there cutting anybody down, running down anybody's career for anything. That's not the way you're supposed to do a book. But you look at a lot of guys' books out there, brother.
Yeah.
They're running people down. They're saying bad shit about them.
The only thing you cut is hair.
And my book's a happy book. When you get done reading it, you're smiling. It's a shame people have to try to make themselves feel better by, downing people and things like that, because it doesn't do them justice,
Well, I tell you, right now where so many people, unfortunately, have a little bit of free time due to what's going on with the pandemic, what a way to kick back and spend a weekend reliving the memories and legends of a true legend himself, former WWF Tag Team Champion, a man that co-main evented WrestleMania 9, never mind the trials and tribulations you went through in your real life 30 years ago this summer. So it's been a great read thus far for me. If you don't want to wait until the holiday season, even though it is a pristine gift-giving idea, you can head on over to BrutusBeefcake.com and have your book shipped directly to you.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. I've been looking forward to this. You guys at home know how much I love to talk about the glory period of the 1980s before it started to go down a little bit in the early 1990s. But we're looking at the year 1988 as we have been with Marty Jannetty. The year kicked off. I mean, you look at the gentlemen that were wearing championship belts right now, Hall of Famers across the board. Of course, the World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion was Hulk Hogan, almost at 4 years as champion at that point. Relative newcomer to the company, the Ultimate Warrior, was being groomed for a spot later in the year, but the Honky Tonk Man was on fire, holding that Intercontinental Championship gold. And you had Strike Force, Tito Santana and Rick Martel is the tag team champion. So no matter what tour you were on with that company, whether it be A team, B team, C team, some weekends even D teams, you had fantastic lineups across the board.
Well, the guys, there was just such huge talents. They were able to run so many towns a night, it was ridiculous. And the money that was pouring in was unbelievable. We're working a lot, though. I went through my book, and when CBS called me and asked about the first year and leading up to WrestleMania 1, and I calculated about 500 times that I laced up my boots during that year.
Really?
1985.
In 85, you think you did 500 shots?
And every year after that, up until 90, 91, 500 matches. Because of all the television tapings, the pay-per-views, the matinee shows on the weekends, that's 2 a days.
Double
on
shots.
Saturdays, 2 days on Sundays. And plus, if you're a featured match, and I was, always, featured match, they'd stick you in there all the time extra, because they're trying to keep the crowd in the building for the show or something like that.
And sometimes when it was really hot, they'd try and put you on early in one card and try and get you to another city, so you'd be working twice at night, almost a triple shot.
Yeah, luckily I didn't have to worry about doing those, but I've seen guys do them.
Yeah, I know that was commonplace for Hogan during his big run. When he was hot with Orndorff, Savage, Bossman, and people like that, they'd go on first or second in one town, and then they'd take, I don't know, a private plane or something to get to another town and go on last there after already doing a matinee. Help the paycheck, that's for sure.
Well, I did that with them. We had an afternoon show and evening shows, jumping on a Learjet and doing an evening show. I did the run with them before all those guys you named off.
Yeah, well, you had a run with them individually in '85.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before Orndorff, before all those guys, before Macho Man, I did the run everywhere.
You had the big run.
Sold out shows everywhere. 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people sometimes outside trying to get in the buildings.
Turnaway crowds, not just sold out in the building, but then you had thousands outside the arena trying to get in that couldn't.
You know, yeah, it was just so hot. The guys, you know, the talents were so great. Everybody worked so hard together, and it just made all the shows, you know, just people just were insane to get in, and it just kept getting better and better.
Why is it that you think in 2020, when maybe if you put on a WWE TV show again, you may have one of the greatest group of athletes they've ever had in that company as far as what they can physically do with their bodies? But why is it that you think even now, 30 plus years after the fact, so many fans look back at that period in the 80s with such great fond memories compared to what they see on TV now each and every week? What was the magic?
Wow, that's not easy to describe. You know, like you said, the guys today, huge talents. Could they do all this kind of crazy acrobatics and flips and things that I never even dreamed about trying to do. And it was a different era. You know, our business changed from the times, from the 80s and early 90s to now. But that's the nature of our business, and of most businesses, that things change. And the question is, you know, how well do you deal with the change? How do you take advantage of the change? How do you make the best of the change? And I'm so glad that I'm not trying to compete with those kids now, man. I'm not want no part of it. I mean, they're insane, the things they do. Ours was a different, a unique style, establishing a rapport with the crowd and being able to manipulate a crowd of thousands and thousands of people out there with a movement of your body, by raising your hand and pointing your finger. Thousands of people would scream and yell and go crazy. And it was just an amazing time, an amazing feeling to be able to wield that kind of power. You know, there's psychology is a huge part of our business, of our craft, I like to call it. And being a master of ring psychology means that you are a master of your craft. It's like being you know, Obi-Wan of the Jedi. You know your stuff. And you know, that's the guys from the 80s and 90s, they're like the Jedi. You know, they just were so smooth. They were so confident. They were just so good at what they did. You know, the interviews that we did, hundreds, thousands for every city. You know, it's all changed. They don't do any of that anymore. They haven't for years. You know, we didn't rehearse matches. You know, now these guys rehearse matches for weeks before they have a match. I can't even understand how they could do it. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. You know, we just worked old school, and for us at the time that worked. The guys now, they have to do what they have to do to make it work for their time. You know, and it's tough. It's super hard. You know, my hat's off to them.
I think nowadays, unfortunately, I think it loses a lot of credibility compared to the golden eras in different time periods, where it's almost like a stunt show as opposed to professional wrestling. And I think it shows just based upon the popularity metrics compared to whether you look at the 80s boom, whether you look at the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars, and you look at right now what are some tough popularity business metrics across the board for the company. I think it's missing that magic. I think it misses that believability. I think it misses that credibility. You know, people can look at professional wrestling however they want to, but in the time periods we're talking about, these people were very engaged with the product. You'd go to the Boston Garden when I was this big. I started to go when I was 5 years old in 1986. And I mean, there were times that building was ready to explode, whether it be during entrances, whether it be during, you know, when the heat was coming down in some of those featured matches. These buildings were rocking. There was hatred coming out of these fans towards the heel, whether they just wanted to be caught up in the moment. Nowadays, it's just, it seems like it's more rhyme and routine, and I think that's unfortunate. I think the wrestlers of today have really missed a great experience being able to do what you guys did the way you did it.
I can remember coming out of the Boston Garden in a little earlier than you, 1989. I mean 1979 maybe, 78, 79ish, and coming down that ramp, that big long ramp out the back, and getting to the bottom. There's being 1,000 people, and it took 100 cops to get us out of the parking lot alive in the car, because they were going to tear the car apart, flip us over, drag us down the street, whatever it took. The people were completely crazy back then for the heels, bombarding you with eggs and rocks and batteries, anything they could find. So, yeah, you could say it was different, you know.
Not only that, the Boston Garden had that unique entrance for the guys after you parked. You had to walk in through a barricade trying to block you off from the fans that were already in the building. And I mean, again, a little elementary school kid, I was almost scared to see it, but I loved it at the same time. When the heels would come through, you know, they'd be screamed at and spit at. Then when a baby face like you or Hulk Hogan would come in, again, it was almost like the red carpet at an Oscar, just trying to get into the Boston Garden for a house show.
Yeah, I remember a few heel matches in the garden. One bunkhouse match with, geez, what was his name? Holy cow, getting old. What was the young man who was half of the tag team Greg and I beat? Geez, I can't think of it. He goes by so many different names.
Rotundo and Wyndham?
Wyndham. Mr. Wyndham.
Barry Wyndham.
What was his dad's?
Blackjack.
Blackjack. Geez, I haven't said that name in 30 years, you know, the Blackjack Mulligan. Bunkhouse match, Blackjack Mulligan. By the time the match was over, the ring was this deep. In cups, popcorn boxes, hot dogs, covered in stuff. And those people never let up. They just kept throwing the whole time.
That was a bunkhouse battle royal in early 1987. I remember that, yeah.
Oh, my God. The Boston Garden was always one of the most unique places in the country. Definitely one of the fiercest. I know Freddie Blassie lost his eye to an egg in Boston Garden.
And speaking of blackjack in the 70s, my God, you know, an earlier time period, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but a fan brought in a knife dipped in pig fat.
Oh, yeah.
And when he was coming down the aisle, sliced him open, he almost lost his leg.
I remember that, yeah.
That's heat.
Yep.
That's heat. You're not seeing that in 2020.
Well, I remember Greg Valentine and I were, you know, as heels, and we get the people going pretty well. The funniest thing was we had more riots in the crowd during our matches. People fighting in the crowd because some people liked us, and the other people the other people just hated us. And as soon as somebody would cheer for us, next thing you know, boom, there's a big fight, a big war going on. We'd have to stop the match almost, get outside, wait for security to grab everybody, pull them apart, and then start our matches up again. And that would happen like 2 or 3 times a week.
Because you had that cool factor
You don't
going
see
for you,
that
too.
happen.
No.
You don't see that happen anymore. riots in the crowds and stuff. Sure used to happen a lot in the 80s.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
had fights all the time in the crowds.
I would sit usually in the loge with my dad, but all night you'd see a brawl in the crowd on this end, a fight in the crowd on that end, and the cops would just be going back and forth on the floor where the hockey rink would be all night. Some great memories. I mean, I look back at that with just a smile on my face compared to, you can enjoy WWE for what it is right now, but the passion is lacking from the fan base compared to what it was. Those people couldn't get enough. To run a lot of those same buildings like MSG, Boston, Chicago, not once or twice a year, but every month. Every month.
Yeah, and the crowd was different, back. I remember there was, the grandmas and grandpas, and then there was the moms and dads, and then there was kids. It was a real whole across the board generational thing of people that came out to wrestling, and then it gradually shrunk down, and I think it's really narrowed its focus now.
It's in tough shape right now, unfortunately. And the funny thing is, it's a time when the industry is never making more money due to some of the great television contracts the company has. But as far as the overall interest goes, you can't compare. It's pennies on the dollar compared to the 80s, different parts of the 90s. And I wasn't alive for the 70s, but Bruno was certainly a household name here in Boston at the very least, and in New York with MSG. So I just think that the passion has been lost, and I think that's unfortunate. And that's why I think it's great there are shows like this, WWE bought every video library. They can create history however they want to. It's their footage. But that doesn't mean there aren't great memories, legends, experiences for some of the great veterans and Hall of Famers to talk about. And that's why I think shows like this are so great.
Well, it is true. Guys like Bruno, he was a real legend. Really a real talent, a real good champion, and a good man. And he helped to mentor and pass his knowledge along to other wrestlers, and then that's kind of one of the problems with things today is that stopped happening, and the guys with the most experience, the champions, the most years, the most knowledge, the most to pass on, never were called upon or got a chance to pass on those that knowledge, that experience, and it just makes a difference in the wrestler. It's easy to tell the difference between the guys who have had it, and I've worked 7 probably years in the territories with those kind of guys, Wahoo McDaniel, Jose Lothario, and Dusty Rhodes, and Harley Race, and the Briscoes, and the Funks, and just on and on.
And that was before WWF.
Way before, yeah. The Vern Gagne's territory, the Owens territory in Portland,
yep.
Yeah, where Piper was from. Met Roddy out there the first time. What a great guy he was, man. It's just a shame we lost too many guys.
A lot of the brotherhood is gone.
He was one of the best. Roddy was one of the best.
Well, in '88, as the year opened up, you were still in the midst of a battle with your former tag team partner, Greg the Hammer Valentine. For pretty much the first quarter of the year in '88, you guys were going at it dozens and dozens of times, across the country, not with the modern style where you fly in, you have a nice little regional schedule for a couple of days, then you fly home after 4 days. You were on the road literally for months at a time at points, with a schedule that was certainly not convenient. You could wind up in Boston one night, fly to San Diego, then the next night after that you're in St. Louis, then fly to Seattle, then fly to Tampa. It wasn't a regionalized schedule by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, what we were doing never been done before, and it definitely, absolutely has never been done since. We flew all over the country relentlessly without really any days off, doing television tapings, 4 or 5 matches a day, 2 days in a row, every couple weeks. So the onslaught that you're putting your body through was just incredible. But the guys were devoted. A lot of guys went to the gym. Not all guys did. A lot of guys trained and went to the gym, and I think that was one of the things that I know for sure that kept me going. It always kept me, you always had injuries. You can't wrestle that many times and not have injuries constantly. But by staying in the gym and staying, the best shape you could possibly be in, that's how it would, that's how you keep going and going. I mean, I was able to do more than 40 years in the ring, and that's like not happened too often.
Yeah. What was it like to work with Greg on a night in, night out basis? Former tag team champion partner, and certainly a guy that knew how to light it up.
Well, Greg had a unique style, and I mean, since I wrestled as partner for a long time, I was uniquely aware of his style. So for me, it wasn't hard. I remember. Greg had his pace. We call him the turtle because he was just so slow. And I know we were going to wrestle at least 20, 25 minutes a night. Some guys didn't want to wrestle more than 10 minutes or something. They had 10, 12 minutes. They only get in there and get out. And wrestling Greg, you're going to be in there like 20, 30 minutes. Because he didn't even get warmed up until 15 minutes into the match.
That was Gorilla Monsoon's line. Every time on TV, it takes him 15 minutes to get warmed up.
And he was old school. I used to watch his dad play, Johnny Valentine, when I was a kid, and he was the only wrestler I was ever really scared of as a kid. They had some big guys and different Pak Song, the giant Korean, and the great Malenko, and you had all these, scary guys, but he had no gimmicks, no big fancy robes, no nothing. He was just a big, raw bone, mean son of a gun. Just a mean son of a bitch. And when you watched him hit guys, there's no pulling that. It's wow, and he hits you and the sweat flies in you. You're getting waffled, and that's how I always had that respect, and that's kind of the way Greg was. And we were wrestling a match in Spokane, Washington, and he has a stubby hand. It's like concrete. You got to watch him though. He's like to do these damn chops. He chopped me in the throat one time. I swear, I wanted to kick him in the head, but I had to keep going with the match. And we did something, and I wound up rolling over underneath the bottom rope, and he came charging across his stubby little legs and kicked me so hard, he screamed.
He screamed?
Yeah.
Wow.
He yelled. I was like, it hurt.
I can imagine.
But I had to put my hands over my own mouth to stop from laughing, so people didn't see me laughing.
Yeah.
Because, Greg's reputation, he was stiff. Everybody says he's stiff. A lot of people didn't like working with Greg at all. I didn't mind, but to have him scream because he kicked me so hard, that was funny. That was a moment in time right there that'll never come again in the wrestling business, but something truly funny. And it was a good time. It's about having a good time. If you don't enjoy what you're doing out there and have fun with it, then the crowd knows that you're not having fun with it, and they're not having fun with it. You have to project personality to those people,
right,
and let them know that what out there is happening is real so they can connect with it. They want to connect with it, but if you can't make it real for them, then then they can't connect with it. And I had a lot of fun, just getting out in the ring and just playing with the crowd, man. Just you'd fall down and be down and lay there, and you'd hear the crowd just oh, and then you could do something, boom, 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 and next thing you know, here they came. Wow, crazy. Bring them back down. Ooh, bring them back up. It's like a symphony.
Right.
Just work them, and just working the crowd. Selling, we're registering, doing stuff, getting a hold on him. He could reverse, get a hold. Just listening to the crowd, listening.
A lost art in 2020.
Yeah,
you guys not only were out to work the crowd, you worked with the crowd in a lot of ways. Now it's almost like paint by the numbers wrestling when you watch it. When it comes to fan interaction, it's almost like they get lost. You guys were maestros at it. If you want to compare it to the music you were just talking about, you'd get them up, get them down, get them up, get them down. If you needed to adjust on the fly, you absolutely know how to do it to perfection.
Yeah, there's no do-overs on pay-per-view and live TV.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Another early addition to the WWF roster in 1988 was the debut of Bad News Brown. Alan Coage had a successful run to some extent. He's claimed in later years that he was promised to become the first black world champion. As someone that was one of Bad News' peers for so long, do you think he would have been a credible champion to take the belt from either Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage in the era he was there?
Well, physically wise, as a wrestler and his abilities, yeah, absolutely, he could handle being the champion. Mm-hmm. I knew him from beyond, yeah, well before the WWE, and he was a medalist in judo.
Yes,
and so very talented guy. He could handle himself. I heard he actually called the Giant out once in Japan, called him off the bus, and not that Giant was afraid, but Giant wasn't going to go outside because he wasn't ready for a one hell of a fight. He wasn't, and that's what he would have got from Bad News. Bad News scared of nobody. And he could have been. It's a shame we lost him early too. I had
very
no idea.
early, yeah.
Next thing you know, Bad News is dead. What? I just talked to him a couple weeks ago. What
Just in his early 60s too. Very interesting guy. I almost think Bad News was kind of ahead of his time. I think his attitude and his persona, I think it would have been an excellent, not that it wasn't a bad fit during that late 80s, early 90s, but during the Attitude Era, when he had that kind of bad-ass attitude, I think he would have fit in really good if he was a few years younger during those Monday Night Wars. One man's opinion.
Yeah, News could have fit anywhere. He was unlucky in that he missed his time by a few years, really being in the right spot at the right time. If he would have just been there a few years earlier, he would have got that run as a world champion probably.
You think so?
I bet he would have.
Interesting. Were you at the TV taping the night he debuted when he found out Cuban Assassin, who I guess he had issues with in real life, was there and he went after him with a pipe?
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't at that one.
Oh, Bret Hart went into great details on that in his book. I mean, talk about a first impression to make. My God, he probably terrified half the guys. And I guess Assassin had a knife, and just another night on the road, I guess, right?
I always had two knives.
He always had two?
Hell yeah.
Oh. Well, he was always well protected then.
Didn't need them, but I had two knives.
Oh,
on
you?
Me. Yeah, me.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah. Yep.
You never know what you'd encounter.
Lucky nobody ever got the chance to find out. It wouldn't have been pretty.
Was there ever a time, especially as a heel, when you would, worry about your safety, having a mob of people coming at you?
All the time.
Yeah.
We had to escape from places with mobs chasing us. Greg and I had to get out of the garden, It's 2 hours after the garden was over. There's still 1,000 people outside.
You're talking MSG?
Yep.
Okay.
And cops got us only so far. We had to get on a sidewalk in our Cadillac and hightail it down a sidewalk for a block, and then around another corner and then down with people chasing us the whole way.
Now, you had to park across the street.
No, we parked.
Oh, you didn't?
We parked in the garden in the garage.
Oh, in the garden itself. Okay.
Yeah.
No, a lot of the guys, even still nowadays, have to go across the street to that garage.
We would ride in and out in the ambulance.
That was the smart way to do it, because then they didn't know who was in the ambulance.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes the ambulance didn't come back, and so we decided just to wait it out, and still 1,000 people outside. It was, once we came down the ramp and they could see us, shit was on.
Again, there's that passion. These fans loved it. No matter what they thought of what was actually going on in the ring, they had that emotional investment in it.
86, 80, early 87.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, forget about a dream team. It was almost a nightmare team just trying to get in and out of the building.
Well, I think, let's see, what's today? It's Wednesday? It's Sunday or Monday was the anniversary of me and Greg winning the world titles in Philadelphia Spectrum.
How about that? That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys had a great run with those tag team titles. Great run with those tag team titles. I can't wait to, as time goes on with this series, break down those early years with you in the company, and then later teaming up with Greg, winning those tag team titles, leading into a great series that you had with the Bulldogs in 1986. We'll get there in the timeline, hopefully, as we would love to have you back again and again when you're up here in the area. But in early 88, we had a departure of someone that seemed to come into the company with a lot of steam. In recent years, I don't know if you've seen any of his interviews, but he's appeared to have lost his mind a little bit. Billy Jack Haynes. I guess you have.
Well, I'm laughing because 1979, I was in Oregon for a year, and I had Kurt Hennig's first match with him out there.
Really?
His dad was with him.
What a great guy Larry
the
Hennig
Axe.
is. I love Larry Hennig.
I stumbled into a gym looking for a new gym one day, and me and Stevie Affey, and guess who was running this gym? Billy Jack. Just a weightlifter, regular guy. And after a few months of working out there, and he started coming around, wanted to come to the matches. Next thing you know, we introduced him to, because he's a big guy, he was built. We introduced him around to some of the boys. Dr. D, David Schultz, was in the territory then. Stan, the man, Stasiak was in the territory then. Matt Bourne, Buddy Rose, all those guys. They introduced him and sent him to Bret Hart's dad. And they broke him in Calgary. And then eventually sent him back to Portland. And then he made his way to the WWE, WWF.
He has said in some of his interviews that he thought he was going to have a spot in the company right under Hulk Hogan. As someone that watched the show at the time, I didn't quite see that in Billy Jack Haynes, but do you think there was potential for him to be a top-tier guy in a company when WWF was signing virtually every top-tier talent in the country that they could get their hands on?
Yeah, that was questionable. Billy, he had talent. He was good. I don't think he was a super top guy. He was, he'd been right underneath that. But
I think middle of the pack was
a lot of guys got promised
like bad news.
Things.
Yeah.
A lot of guys got promised a lot of things that never came about back in those days. And yeah, so it did. There were some hurt feelings going around.
To say the very least.
Yeah, you better believe it.
in mid-January 1988, you had the first incarnation of the Royal Rumble event, not the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, because the first year the event wasn't even on pay-per-view. It was a special on the USA Network for free to combat the NWA Bunkhouse Stampede attempt on pay-per-view with Jim Crockett. Obviously, the Royal Rumble has gone on to become a phenomenon, but to show at that point what it was, you weren't even at the Royal Rumble event. You were working a house show elsewhere in Canada, which drew a great crowd in and of itself. But thinking back to it, did you think that this free special on USA would morph into WWE's second biggest pay-per-view event of the year here in 2020?
Well, everything we did was caught on super well. You know, everything just, it just caught on. Everybody loved it. Everybody loves it.
At the time, 88's Royal Rumble, you had what was a very well-received match between the ladies, Jumping Bomb Angels, and the Glamour Girls, Judy Martin and Leilani Kai. Fabulous Moolah, I guess, was out of receiving the percentage from Martin and Kai and went on to try and sabotage their matches in Japan, saying they wanted a title change that wasn't planned. And it cost them a spot at WrestleMania 4. Certainly, in 2019, WWE said they were introducing women's tag team titles for the first time. Longtime fans know that isn't the truth. Did you ever get a chance to see the Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls going at it on the road? As they had some really solid women's matches.
Yeah, you know, I mean, watching the girls' matches wasn't, you know, my favorite pastime, brother, honestly.
I got you. I got you.
You know, I caught some of their matches, and in all honesty, they worked their butts off and everything. And no question about it. No question about that. And they were all friends of mine. They, you know, I knew them all.
I think
quite well.
I think when you look back at that era, I think Leilani Kai deserves more love in 2020 than she gets. I think she was certainly one of the rocks of the women's wrestling in the 1980s when she was involved a few years earlier with Wendy Richter.
She lives down by me in Florida.
Is she?
Yeah.
She did a great interview here with John Cena Sr. a few years back, but I think it's really a shame she's not in the Hall of Fame. I think she really contributed a lot first in that run when she was the women's champion headed into the first WrestleMania, and then later on, as we just mentioned now, the women's tag team title. But hopefully someday she'll get the respect she deserves for a company that she contributed an awful lot to.
Maybe they'll boot Kid Rock out and put in a wrestler.
No kidding, right?
I just to see Rocky and Bullwinkle, the flying squirrel, be in the Hall of Fame before that idiot. I mean, come on.
Not much of a contribution to either wrestling or WWE either way.
Let's get real. Come on, Hall of Famer. That just insults everybody.
A lot of the celebrity inductions. I know it's nice to get a little pizzazz going into the event, but I think it takes away a lot of the credibility that the institution should have. You have guys out there that dedicated their lives like yourself, and then you have a guy that sang a song once or twice coming in and receiving an award on the same night.
Guys that worked their whole lives, you know, gave everything they had, gave their bodies, gave it all up, and then, you know, they get nothing, no recognition. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. Got a lot of friends that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and they're not. But you try to be positive, remember them well, and hope that they'll come to their senses.
Well, as we mentioned,
and do the right thing. Come on.
As we mentioned in a previous episode, someone like Kamala, I think it would have meant a lot to him to have been put into the Hall of Fame before he passed away.
Well, he's alive.
Right.
You know.
I'll tell you.
He's got family and friends and cousins and sisters, you know, and everybody can rejoice in his, you know, achievement. Yeah.
And even Vader, Leon White, is somewhere up here on one of these disc covers. I personally know it would have meant a lot to him to go into that Hall of Fame while he was still alive, and instead, crickets. So I don't understand the thought process behind that. When you have now Warrior Awards in honor of the Ultimate Warrior, which you can say a lot about in and of itself, would you rather see pro wrestlers going in that night as opposed to people, again, that had nothing to do with professional wrestling as it is. Although I will say I was very happy in 2019 when you were inducted in New York City to the Warrior Award recipient that night, a dear friend of ours, Sweet Sue, the one and only Sue Aitchison. I think there is someone that deserves to be in that company's Hall of Fame, even if she never participated in a wrestling match.
No, absolutely. But she was an intimate and very, very vital part of the company and interacting with the guys and the way she looked after the guys and took care of the guys for years. You know, I mean, that's what honor. I mean, that's what honor. That's what loyalty is. You know, to a company and to people, and that's what's supposed to be rewarded. So
not
yeah.
Joan London. No, Sue, you know, she started off in just a semi-regular office position in 1986 and morphed into the great charity work she's done. Now she works in talent relations. Just one of the nicest people I've ever met, not just in professional wrestling, but just in life in general. Just a great human being. Every year she plays such a big part in the Paul Bearer Holiday Headlocks Toy Drive that we do heading into Christmas. Along with, we have our live event. She's a great help with that too, with Special Olympics, and especially Make-A-Wish. I know she has no children of her own, so it's like all of the Make-A-Wish kids are hers. They really pull on the strings of her heart.
I'm a Make-A-Wish kid.
You're a Make-A-Wish kid?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Oh, I'm an honorary Make-A-Wish kid from that accident you were talking about 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I wasn't expected to live. The Make-A-Wish Foundation sent, because I did a lot of work with them.
Sure.
Sent me a letter and a pen and said, yes, sir, Mr. Beefcake, you are definitely an honorary Make-A-Wish Foundation kid.
Isn't that great?
For forever.
I have never known they did that for the adults. Now, did they give you a wish? Or they just
Well,
sent you the pen?
no, my wish is just to live.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
And I got my wish, and absolutely to everybody, the doctors, they said there's no way I'm going to live, there's no way I'm going to recover, period. And I definitely was able to prove everybody wrong.
Marty Jannetty spoke of it not too long ago, but you know, what was the experience like when you'd have these kids that were, in a lot of cases, clinging to life, trying to find a little hope and a little happiness, and their request was to meet Brutus the Barber Beefcake when he came to town. What was that experience like going to meet these poor little kids?
Well, it's a hugely humbling experience, and it's like, you know, I don't have to sound funny, but I pray every morning, I pray every night, I pray day and night. These kids are just, when I see these kids and I think, God, geez, you know, I'm complaining because, oh, my bumped my knee or my back hurts a little, or I missed a meal, I didn't get to have something, you know what? And I started thinking about these kids that got nothing. They're growing up, they're dying of cancer or they're whatever from these horrible diseases, leukemia, this, that, their lungs and stuff. And, you know, just, you think, God, I'm so spoiled. So every day is a gift. You got to live every day and enjoy it and treat it like it's a gift, and live it and live every day, not just exist, not just go through it blind, walking, you know, just endlessly forging ahead for nothing. You know, you got to live for something, you know, and seeing kids, I went to see a lot of kids in 40 years in the business, in hospitals all over the planet, visiting sick kids. And it always brings my feet right back down to the ground. It makes me appreciate everything I got and my family and everything.
Kids that have nothing to look forward to other than pain and sickness, but for those moments when the guys can go in there, it's almost like you take that pain away for just a little bit. And I don't think there's a greater gift you can give.
You see their faces and that excitement and they're experiencing that something that they never thought they would experience in their lives, and it's just it's an honor. It's a huge honor to be able to do that, to affect a person's life so profoundly that they never forget for the rest of their life what happened that day. Yeah, that's that's something special, man.
And not only with the kids, but think of the impact it makes on the parents who are sitting there with these kids day after day, night after night, knowing what the final destination is probably going to be. But for that one day when you get to go in, these kids, they're not sick, they don't have an ailment or an illness or a disease. For a little while, they get to feel like a kid. And that's a great, see, you're going to get me worked up because we've done a lot with those Make-A-Wish kids over the years. And it is, I'm glad we're able to do it. It's tough to see sometimes when we're doing it.
To rip your guts out.
Yeah. That's why I don't know how Sue does it when she has set up literally thousands of these Make-A-Wish, not a couple dozen, not a couple hundred, thousands of those Make-A-Wish greetings with those kids. And like she said before, she doesn't have any of her own kids, so each one of those kids turns into one of her own. And I think that says so much about her as a person. I hope she gets to see this because we send her videos from time to time, and she's just one of the finest people I know.
Go pursue.
All right, but as we wrap up this episode, I think it's a great place to stop. We talked a little bit about 80s wrestling. We talked about the beginnings of 1988, what this fine gentleman was doing. We're going to be back on WWE's next pay-per-view offering, which is going to be Hell in a Cell, what was a violent pay-per-view that used to include blood before they went to sports entertainment, kid-cutting wrestling with it. That's a different story for a different time. After the pay-per-view, Brutus and I are going to be back. We're having a lot of fun here. Please share it with your friends. If you're watching the premiere of the episode, we have the Super Chat going. Click that gray button. It helps us. That's John Cena Sr.'s soda line. There you go.
That's funny.
I
should have brought one of my beers.
You couldn't give him a haircut.
Brutus Beefcake beer.
Do you have your own beer?
Oh, yeah, man. Make it down the Cape.
Bring it next time. We'll line up the... I didn't know you had it, or I would have given you the spot here for a little promotional plug on there. How can they get your beer? Can you get it online?
That I haven't tried to see if I could get it online again. Guys gave me some, and we got it home in Florida.
Send us a link. We'd be happy to promote that along with this. If you don't want to wait until Hell in the Cell, head on over to BrutusBeefcake.com. Get your copy of the great autobiography, Brutus Beefcake, Strutting and Cutting. For my partner in crime this week, Brutus Beefcake, I'm Dan Marati. We'll see you on Hell in the Cell. Don't forget, Tuesday night at 9, it's Tony Atlas. Thursday night at 9, Marty Jannetty. Let's keep the memories and legends rolling. Be well, stay healthy. Good night.